Welcome to a new episode from English Plus Podcast. Today, we're going to talk about Alexander the Great and the great things he did in his very short lifetime. So without further ado, let's start talking about Alexander the Great. He was a king, a commander, and a conqueror. Alexander the Great was so powerful, some people called him a god. He was one of the greatest generals in history, and he built a vast empire that extended from the Mediterranean Sea to India. Alexander was born in Macedonia in 356 BC. His father, King Philip II of Macedonia, hired the famous Greek philosopher Aristotle to tutor young Alexander. In the summer of 336 BC, Philip was murdered by one of his bodyguards. Alexander then became king. Many people in Macedonia plotted against the young king, but Alexander was shrewd. He quickly ordered the execution of all his conspirators. At the same time, some Greek cities ruled by Macedonia rebelled and others threatened to seek independence. Alexander crushed the rebellions and restored Macedonian rule. Next, in 334 BC, Alexander turned his attention toward the Persian Empire in Southwest Asia. Alexander led Macedonian and Greek soldiers to attack Darius III, Persia's king. Their armies met at Issus in Syria in 333 BC and fought a fierce battle. Alexander won and Darius fled. Alexander then led his soldiers south into Egypt. Alexander seized power from the pharaoh who ruled Egypt on behalf of the Persians. The grateful Egyptians saw Alexander as a person who freed them, and they crowned him pharaoh. At the mouth of the Nile River in northern Egypt, Alexander founded a new city. He named the city Alexandria, and it became a famous center of learning. In 331 BC, Alexander led his troops back north into Persia. King Darius was eager for revenge. Alexander and Darius fought another great battle. This time at Gaugamela, once again, Alexander won. The battle at Gaugamela ended centuries of Persian rule in Asia. Alexander then turned south and conquered other important Persian cities. At Persepolis, he burned down Darius' palace to show he had conquered the Persian Empire. In 330 BC, Alexander went north to find Darius again. This time, Darius was killed by his own men as he fled. Alexander was a military genius and a great explorer, but he also had a grand ambition. He wanted to rule a world empire where people could live in peace with one another. From 330 to 327 BC, Alexander led his soldiers east through Afghanistan and into Central Asia. As he traveled, he built more cities. He recruited soldiers, merchants, and scholars from many lands to settle there. In 326 BC, Alexander turned south into India. But by then, his men were tired and weak. They were far from home in an unknown land. The soldiers rebelled and refused to go farther. Reluctantly, Alexander turned back. By 323 BC, he reached Babylon in Iraq. While there, he caught a fever and died at the age of 33. His empire was divided among his generals after his death. So that was our story about Alexander the Great, and now I will leave you with Ben, who will tell you about the key vocabulary we can find in the story about Alexander the Great. But before we do that, let me remind you that you can find extra practice where you can practice your listening and you can practice comprehension or the vocabulary you're just going to learn with Ben. And all of that you can find on our website, EnglishPlusPodcast.com. Take the link you will find in the description and practice your English to become even better and practice everything we're learning here in this podcast. And if you like the content we're creating, support us on Patreon. You can also find the link in the description that will take you to our Patreon page. Support us by becoming a patron of English Plus Podcast and help us reach more people and grow with more episodes. And now, without further ado, let's talk about the key vocabulary we can find in this text about Alexander the Great. I will leave you with Ben. Well, there are a couple of words that we need to talk about in this text. These words are interesting and there are key words to understand this text. The first word I'm going to focus on is the word extend. When we said he built a vast empire that extended from the Mediterranean Sea to India. Now, what is the meaning of extend? If you say that something, usually something large, extends for a particular distance or extends from one place to another, you are indicating its size or position. And here we're talking about the vast empire Alexander the Great built. And then the next word is tutor. When we said his father, King Philip, hired the famous Greek philosopher Aristotle to tutor young Alexander. Now, what is the meaning of tutor? If someone tutors a person or a subject, they teach that person or subject. And the tutor is not a regular teacher. A tutor is someone who gives private lessons to one student or a very small group of students. In this case, of course, the son of the king, Alexander. So he only had one student. And now for the next word, and that happened after Alexander's father died. We said many people in Macedonia plotted against the young king. So what is the meaning of plot when you plot against somebody? If people plot to do something or plot something that is illegal or wrong, they plan secretly to do it. So it is kind of like planning, but it is a secret plan because it's usually something dangerous, illegal, or most probably both. And now the next word is shrewd. Now we said that a lot of people plotted against the young king, but Alexander was shrewd. What is the meaning of shrewd? A shrewd person is able to understand and judge a situation quickly and to use this understanding to their own advantage. And that was exactly what Alexander was like. He was very clever and he knew how to use this talent that he had for his own advantage. He was shrewd. And then we said that he quickly ordered the execution of all the conspirators. Now, the first word here is the execution. What is the execution? This is the carrying out or undergoing of a sentence of death. So that is the execution of all the conspirators. Who are the conspirators? Now, first, conspiracy. That comes from conspiracy. What is a conspiracy? Conspiracy is the secret planning by a group of people to do something illegal. So conspirators are people who joins a conspiracy, people who are involved in a secret plan to do something illegal. These are called conspirators. And then we said that Greek cities ruled by Macedonia rebelled. What is the meaning of rebel? Now, when you fight your own army or your own country because you want to change the system, it doesn't matter if you're right or wrong, but at the time you're fighting the system. So that means you rebel against the system. And in our situation here, Alexander was the king. So to fight against this authority is exactly the meaning of rebel. And after rebel, we talked about the fierce battle that happened between Darius III and Alexander. What is the meaning of fierce? Now, fierce feelings or actions are very intense or enthusiastic or involve great activity. A fierce animal or person is very aggressive or angry. And that was what the battle was like. It was fierce. It was aggressive. It was tense. But in this battle, we said that Alexander won and Darius fled. What is the meaning of fled? Well, fled is the past form of flee. If you flee from something or someone or flee a person or thing, you escape from them. So Darius escaped from Alexander because obviously he lost. And then we use the expression on behalf of the Persians when we said who ruled Egypt on behalf of the Persians. When you do something on behalf of someone else, what does that mean? That means you do it representing this person or in place of that person because you're speaking for this person or you're representing that person. Now we have two more words we need to focus on, and that is about Alexander when he recruited soldiers, merchants, and scholars. When we talk about recruiting people for an organization, that means you select them and you persuade them to join in and work for this organization. And here, of course, that was not an organization, but it was an empire.
So he recruited soldiers, he hired. It's like hired soldiers, merchants, and scholars. Now, what do we mean by scholars? A scholar is a person who studies an academic subject and knows a lot about something. And these were the people Alexander wanted to gather, who wanted to recruit to build a world empire. And with that being said, these are all the words that I wanted to focus on in this text. Don't forget to take the link in the description that will take you to our website, EnglishPlusPodcast.com, where you will find interactive activities and a PDF downloadable worksheet you can use to practice the words and practice your listening skills and comprehension. If you're listening to the podcast just to enjoy, you're more than welcome. But if you want to take your English to the next level, take the link, go to our website, and you will find everything you need to improve your English. With that being said, I would like to thank you very much for listening to another episode from English Plus Podcast. We will see you next time.